Hi there, this is Love Johar. Thank you so much for tuning into this video and thank you so much for watching this channel. 4.3 clause of ISO 27001, very important clause. Everything regarding this clause we'll be discussing in this video, along with real-time examples, real-time case study examples that we will see. First example of scope definition we'll see for financial services company. Second example we'll see for a technology startup company, and the third example we'll see for a healthcare provider company. Stay tuned, a lot to learn in this video, especially if you are beginning your journey with ISO 27001 2022 implementation, or if you are a seasoned professional as well. This video will be really helpful to you. Stay tuned.
So I'm Ashutosh from Pune. Videos were so helpful, so that each and everything what he used to explain his videos, I always find it very easy understanding. The same contents are there, like thousands of trainers and coach and mentors are there on the internet, but then the kind of information is provided by Love that is on a very different level, especially for Indians, because you get that personal touch from his communication, from his training videos, the kind of knowledge he provides. Love, thank you so much for whatever you have done for me. It really helps me and helps me to stand out from the crowd in my company or in my previous job. So thank you, Love, for holding my hand in this journey and helping me with all this information.
So let's see now what do we have in the scope of the ISMS. Very important document from an implementation perspective. This is the one of the main documents that the auditors will actually reference to. Okay, what is actually scope? So scope basically defines boundaries and applicability of the ISMS that you are creating, right? So whatever boundaries you have, what all applicability that you have for ISO 27001 implementation, they are defined by nothing but the scope document that you have, right? So make a note of this. Okay, very important document from a certification perspective as well. Okay, so what exactly is the focus and relevance? Basically, scope ensures that the ISMS is focused on the most critical parts of the organization, because definitely you will implement the ISMS in that particular area as well, which is very critical. Accordingly, you allocate the resource where you have the scope. Okay, aligns the ISMS with the legal, regulatory, and contractual obligations relevant to the organization as well. Okay, scope is very important. Benefits of defining scope is that, by clearly defining the scope, you can basically more effectively manage and mitigate the risk. Okay, because you need to know what all the focus areas that you have, that you need to focus on after defining the scope. Okay, a well defined scope basically simplifies the audit process as well, making it easier to demonstrate compliance, because the auditors will also look out for areas where you have the scope defined, right? And provide assurance to the stakeholders that ISMS covers all the necessary areas as a part of your organization. Okay, and prevents unnecessary expenditure, mainly because of the areas which are not relevant to the ISMS, so you do not have to cover them in the scope, right? Who is responsible for creating the scope? Again, top management is responsible for defining and approving the scope of the ISMS. And what are the requirements of clause 4.3? Clearly outlining what all business units are there, what all organization units are there, what all locations are there, what all processes, what all functions, what all technologies are involved. It basically should be included in the scope of the ISMS. This is very important. And accordingly, you need to make sure that you have identified all the internal and external issues, okay, while defining the scope. So that's why, considering the previous videos that I have created on ISO 27001 4.1 and 4.2, please watch the videos very carefully that I've created yesterday and day before yesterday. Without having a clear understanding of the organizational context and needs and expectation of interested parties, you might not be able to create the scope properly. Okay, so make sure you consider this point very important. And once the scope is created, documented, make sure you get it approved from the relevant stakeholders and make it accessible to all the stakeholders and for the auditors. Okay, so basically the scope should reflect the organization's strategic objectives and risk management priorities as per the implementation of the ISMS 27001. So how exactly you implement scope? Okay, you need to assess all the areas of the organization to identify which are actually included in the ISMS. from an importance perspective, from a business perspective, right? And you need to collaborate with stakeholders in order to identify their needs and expectations. That's where clause 4.1 and 4.2 come into play. Then you clearly define the scope, include boundaries, exclusions, and rationale. What are the exclusions here? Exclusions basically point out what all things which are not included as part of the scope will come under the exclusion section, right? You make a note of that. And scope needs to be reviewed periodically as well, so that you need to make sure that you're not missing on any critical aspect of the organization, right? And you mainly have to focus on security efforts that are concentrated on the areas that matter most to the organization. These areas will mainly come under the scope of the implementation, right? And accordingly you facilitate compliance as well. So how to pass the audit? Basically having a clear, well documented scope that is aligned with business objectives and risk assessment process will basically help you. Okay, so you can show that the scope was defined based on comprehensive understanding of internal and external issues, as well as need and expectation of interested parties, and you provide evidence as well, minutes of meetings as well, approval process as well for the scope. This is what you need. Okay, auditors will basically verify the scope is well documented and accessible. Okay, they basically check whether the scope is aligned with the business objectives. There should not be very critical areas which are left out of the scope, so auditors will definitely check out of that. So you need to make sure that the scope is properly defined. Okay, so they'll examine whether all critical areas, location, processes, system functions are included within the scope or not. This will be checked by the auditors, right? Inadequate scope definition is basically failing to include all the relevant areas, leading to gaps in the SMS. Basically, one of the very common reasons how people actually make mistakes while creating the scope document. Overcomplicating the scope, including too much of information, making the ISMS unmanageable, and diluting focus is basically another mistake that people do. And basically, not regularly reviewing the scope also is another mistake, right? So let us now quickly jump to the scope for a financial service company. Okay, so we have a company size, medium size financial company, firm with multiple branches. Core activities are banking, investment services, and financial advisory. And geographic scope is basically national presence in office in major cities, right? So basically how you implement scope in this case is how you basically identify what all critical processes do the company have. Okay, what all critical processes do they have, including online banking system, customer database, financial transaction processing, and excluding any non-administrative functions. Okay, you keep a note of this. Then you define the geographical scope. Okay, have you include all branch offices processing customer data, or you want to exclude any locations handling only administrative tasks? These decisions you have to make, right? Consider internal and external factors. Okay, regulatory requirements like we discussed in 4.1 and 4.2. Then you document the scope. Okay, specify inclusion and exclusions and rationale behind the scope creation. Then you review and update, okay, the scope as per the review process. Now here is how the scope document definition will actually look at the end of this is a byproduct of the scope definition that you will get at the end of the implementation steps. The scope of the ISMS at company name financial institution basically includes all online banking systems, customer database, financial transaction processing systems, and all associated infrastructure at branch offices across the country name, right? This scope specifically excludes non-core administrative function and offices that do not process or store customer financial data. This is how you add exclusions to the scope. Very important. Okay, this is how you add exclusions to the scope. The scope also encompasses third-party vendors who are involved in the processing of customer data in compliance with relevant banking regulations as well. Okay, so this is how you define the scope. This is a scope definition for your reference. Again, now let us see the second case study, which is for a technology startup company. Okay, company size is small software development company specializing in cloud-based solutions, and core activities are software development, okay, cloud hosting, customer support, and international clients with a development office and a small support team. Okay, so let us focus on critical areas. What are the critical processes? Software development, cloud hosting, customer support systems are the critical processes. Okay, excluding marketing and sales function, this needs to be excluded from the scope. Identifying what all the relevant technologies are there, cloud infrastructure is there, source code repository are there, and project management tools are there. Engaging with stakeholders, understanding if we are not missing anything, documenting and communicating, and regularly monitoring. Now here comes the scope definition. The scope of the ISMS at company name includes all software development processes, cloud hosting environment, source code repository, customer support system, and project management tools used within the organization. The scope specifically excludes, here is exclusion, right? marketing and sales function that do not handle sensitive information. Okay, so this is how you handle the exclusions now. Okay, and here you specify geographical scope includes the development office and support team handling international client data. Regular quarterly reviews ensure the scope remains relevant. Okay, now let us have another case study of a healthcare provider. This is a healthcare provider that we have, and it's a large healthcare organization with multiple hospitals and clinics. Okay, core activities include patient care, medical research, health administration as well, and geographical scope is regional presence with facilities across multiple states. Include critical medical systems and critical processes. Okay, include EHR systems, patient database, medical imaging systems. Exclude any administration offices that they have. Okay, consider compliance requirement from a HIPAA perspective. Okay, including third party providers. Define physical scope, include all the hospital locations storing and processing patient data. Exclude any non medical research labs, right? And then you document and justify and review, right? So this is the scope definition as per the implementation that we have done. The scope of ISMS at company name this includes all the electronic health records systems, patient database, medical imaging systems, and associated IT infrastructure across all hospitals located in this particular region. The scope excludes, now here comes the exclusion, administrative offices that do not handle patient data and non-medical research labs, right? And the scope also includes third-party providers involved in processing or storing patient data as per compliance with the HIPAA regulation, right? So I hope you must have got a clear idea now how to create scope in a different organization in different case studies that we have discussed. Any questions, any comments if you want, feel free to add in the comment section. If you are defining your scope in a different way, I would like to hear more about that. Please add it in the comment section also. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye bye.